What happens when the man who signs the paychecks walks into his own hotel looking broke and gets kicked out? Rain hammered the windshield as Rowan Daniels parked the rental car outside the Belhurst Grand, a luxury hotel he technically owned but hadn't stepped foot in for over 5 years. It was one of 20 properties spread across 3 states, a family business he'd inherited after his father passed away. Rowan had grown it, modernized the brand, and pushed through the pandemic by leaning heavily on district reports and Zoom meetings. But recently, numbers from this particular location had started to dip. Customer reviews were mixed, some glowing, others scathing. Complaints about rude front desk staff, cleanliness slipping, and one that stuck with him. Felt like they judged me the moment I walked in. Rowan didn't want another filtered report or a sugar-coated call. He wanted to feel the place himself, so he did something no one expected. He went undercover. He'd grown a beard, wore an old windbreaker, faded jeans, and scuffed sneakers. The baseball cap pulled low didn't just hide his identity, it made him look like a man barely scraping by. It helped that the receptionist he was about to meet had never met him before. This was a corporate chain. Most ground staff only ever saw upper management on training videos or email memos. He stepped through the doors, dripping wet, dragging a worn-out duffel bag behind him. The lobby was as beautiful as he remembered: high ceilings, gold accents, soft jazz playing. But something about the energy felt off, cold, unwelcoming. Rowan approached the front desk. Behind it stood a tall woman with sharp eyeliner and a tighter expression. Her name tag read Macy. "Hi," he said, voice low. "I was wondering if you had a room available tonight." She barely looked up from her screen. "Do you have a reservation?" "No, I don't. My car broke down a few miles out. I just need a place for the night. I can pay in the morning after I get to the bank." "I just need a warm bed." That made her look up. Her eyes scanned his clothes, the bag, the mud on his sneakers. "You want me to give you a room without payment?" "I'm not asking for free, just until morning. I'll cover everything, even a deposit, by noon." "I swear." Macy let out a short breath through her nose and turned to the side, whispering something to the man next to her. He was shorter, with a buzz cut and a clipboard, probably the evening manager. The man glanced at Rowan, then leaned in and whispered something back. Macy turned to him again, this time with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. We're fully booked tonight." Rowan looked over her shoulder. The reservation screen was visible for a second. At least 10 rooms were open. "I just saw we're fully booked," she repeated, firmer this time. "Try the inn down the road, they're more casual." Rowan stood there, stunned. It wasn't just the refusal, it was the way she said casual, like she was tossing him out with the trash. He nodded slowly, swallowed his pride, and walked out. Rain soaked him before he even got to the car. Inside, gripping the steering wheel, Rowan felt a knot tighten in his chest. He wasn't angry, he was disappointed. This was his place. His father built this business on hospitality. And now, it was turning away people who looked broke. He drove a mile down the road and checked into a dingy roadside motel where the clerk smiled, gave him a discount, and even offered him a towel. Rowan couldn't sleep. By morning, his decision was made. He would return to Belhurst Grand. This time, not as a guest, but as a trainee. 2 days later, he walked into the staff entrance with a fresh uniform, a new name, Rick, and a forged resume that placed him as a new hire from a different city. He'd cleared it with HR quietly. The general manager of the hotel, a man named Julian, met him in the break room. "All right, Rick, you'll be shadowing Diego today. He's one of our best bellhops. Watch, learn, stay out of the way." Julian didn't know who Rick really was. No one did. Rowan had never met the man. He was hired after the last GM retired. Julian wore a Rolex and a forced smile, and his eyes always seemed to be scanning for someone more important to talk to. Diego, on the other hand, was different. "Hey, you must be the new guy." "I'm Diego," he said, extending a hand. He was in his early 30s, lean, and had a warm, tired face. "We don't get many fresh hires lately. Staff's been stretched thin since they cut hours." "Cut hours?" "Yeah, supposed to save costs." But now we're doing double the work with half the people. Rowan nodded, keeping his thoughts to himself. The next 8 hours were non-stop hauling luggage, delivering room service, helping lost guests, fixing a jammed elevator door. Diego never complained. He smiled, cracked jokes, and remembered returning guests by name. By the end of the shift, Rowan's back ached and his shirt clung with sweat. In the break room, Diego handed him a water bottle. "You did good today, man. Most new hires crash after lunch." "You kept up." "Thanks," Rowan said, genuinely grateful. "You always this." "Positive," Diego chuckled. "Nah, I just remind myself every guest's got a story. You treat people like people, not problems." That night, Rowan sat in his motel room and wrote down every interaction: Macy's dismissal, Julian's aloofness, Diego's kindness. He was starting to see the cracks in the foundation, and he wasn't done digging. Rowan clocked in at 6:40 the next morning, 10 minutes ahead of call time. The employee locker room smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals and microwaved leftovers. A laminated list of housekeeping assignments was pinned to the bulletin board by the timekeeper's office. He scanned it quickly. His name, Rick, as far as anyone knew, was listed under Lobby Support, and next to it, Report to Mona. He made his way past the service elevators, where a few housekeepers were already loading carts. No one really talked. They just moved with sleepy muscle memory, like they'd been doing the same thing for too long. When he found Mona, she was arranging bottles of glass cleaner, dragging a mop bucket behind her. Late 40s, short, with calloused hands and deep lines around her mouth, she was the kind of person who didn't bother with small talk unless it had a purpose. "You're Rick," he nodded. "Good, lobby's yours. Windows, floors, trash. You see a cup sitting somewhere, it's your problem. You see a guest looking lost, it's still your problem." She handed him a rag and pointed to a wall-mounted control panel for the floor polisher. "You ever used one of those?" "Not in a while." "Then you're about to remember." She walked off without waiting for a response. By 7:30, Rowan was sweating through his uniform. The machine was heavier than it looked and vibrated violently if you didn't guide it just right. He managed to polish the marble near the entrance without crashing into anything, though a few guests gave him wide berth. At one point, a woman in a navy pantsuit stepped out of the elevator with a young boy tugging at her sleeve. The boy pointed at a tall potted plant near the concierge desk. "There's trash in there," he said. Rowan walked over and reached in. Someone had stuffed a half-finished sandwich behind the leaves. He dumped it into his trash bag and nodded at the boy. The woman didn't even glance at him. By 9, the breakfast rush had passed. Staff moved briskly but without urgency. A few new guests arrived, wheeling suitcases across the polished floor he'd just finished. He leaned on the mop handle for a moment, catching his breath. A voice called from behind. "You're Rick, right?" He turned. The man wore a gray blazer over a checkered shirt, holding a clipboard with a plastic badge clipped to his breast pocket. "Operations Trent." "Yeah. You're needed at the North Service Corridor. Elevators stuck again. You'll help guide guests to the West Wing." Rowan followed him through a plain hallway that smelled of chlorine and floor wax. As they rounded a corner, Trent lowered his voice. "Try not to let anyone record." Last time this happened, someone put it on social media trapped in a luxury hotel elevator for 40 minutes. Didn't look good. They reached the corridor. A couple from Atlanta, judging by their conversation, stood near the elevator bank with their carry-ons. A maintenance worker was already on site, tools spread out beside him. The woman looked agitated. "We have a flight at noon," she said. Trent nodded politely. "We'll escort you through our West Wing. It's a bit of a walk, but we'll make sure you get there quickly." Rowan took the bags without being asked. The husband gave him a quick thanks and they followed Trent down a service hallway that ran behind the banquet rooms. After the detour, Trent pulled Rowan aside. "You handled that well." "Some guys get flustered when guests get pushy." "Not my first time dealing with stress," Rowan said. Trent studied him for a second. "Where'd you transfer from again?" "Westbridge." Trent nodded. "Never been there." They still using the old booking system, upgraded last quarter. That's something. We're still stuck with the ancient one. He tapped his clipboard. Half the time it crashes when I'm logging damage reports. Rowan kept his expression neutral. Trent seemed sharp, observant, but not particularly warm. More like someone who understood how to keep things running barely. Later that day, Rowan returned to the lobby and saw Diego wheeling a cart stacked with folded towels. He fell in step beside him. "Didn't expect to see you doing laundry runs," Rowan said. "Neither did I," Diego replied, "but we're short again. Housekeeping's down 2 people today. One called out, the other quit." "They replacing them," Diego snorted softly. "They say they're trying. But nobody wants this job for what it pays, not with the hours." They reached a guest floor. The hallway carpets were plush but showed signs of wear, faded patches near the elevator, a few loose threads near the corners. Small things, but they added up. A door opened just as they passed. A guest in a robe stepped out, looking annoyed. "Our shower pressure's terrible," she said. "This is supposed to be an executive suite, right?" Diego offered a polite nod. "I'll alert maintenance. Sorry about the inconvenience." She closed the door without another word. As they continued down the hall, Rowan asked, "That happen often? Every day? Pipes haven't been flushed in months. They know about it. Just not a priority, I guess." Rowan didn't respond. He was cataloging every issue: slipping service, overworked staff, ignored repairs. But what unsettled him most wasn't the problems themselves. It was the quiet resignation. No one seemed surprised. They were used to being ignored. That night in the break room, he overheard a conversation that stopped him cold. 2 front desk clerks sat eating instant noodles from paper cups. One of them, a younger woman with braided hair, was scrolling through her phone. "Did you see the email from Julian?" she asked. The other, a stocky guy with tired eyes, nodded. "Cutting our overtime again. I'm already under my rent this month." "Same, he says the budget's tight." "But he's still driving that Benz, right?" They laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Rowan kept his distance, watching them finish their break in silence. He wanted to talk to them, ask questions, dig deeper, but not yet. He needed more context. The next morning, he got his chance. Julian was holding a staff briefing in the conference room. Rowan slipped in quietly and stood at the back. The room was half full. A few servers, some housekeepers, a couple of desk agents. Julian stood at the front, arms crossed, a tablet in one hand. "Let's keep this short," he said. "Guest scores are down. We're seeing too many complaints about cleanliness and attitude. That's not who we are." Someone near the front muttered under their breath. Julian looked up. "Something to share?" The woman, mid-30s, wearing a name tag that read Lara, shook her head. He continued. "If you're tired, drink coffee. If you're overworked, speak to your supervisor, not the guests. We're a premium experience. That means polish, poise, and professionalism, every time." Rowan watched the room. No one nodded. No one looked inspired. They just listened like people who'd heard it all before. Julian paused, then added, "Let's remember every guest is a chance to impress. Let's start acting like it." He dismissed the room with a tight smile and walked out. Rowan followed him down the hall. "Julian," he called. Julian turned. "Yes. I've been helping in the lobby. Noticed a few issues: supply delays, broken fixtures. Just wondering if there's a system for logging that." Julian raised an eyebrow. "You're the new guy, right?" "Yeah, appreciate the initiative," he said, "but focus on your tasks. Let the managers manage." He turned and walked off. Rowan stood alone in the corridor, watching him go. The message was clear: stay in your lane. That night, Rowan sat in his car outside the hotel, staring at the building he technically owned. He looked at the guest windows glowing softly above, then at the staff entrance, narrow, dim, and tucked behind the dumpsters. He thought of Diego hauling towels and fixing jammed doors, of Mona barking orders with a limp in her step, of the front desk clerks who couldn't make rent, and of the guests. The ones who paid for comfort and got cut corners instead. He reached for his phone and made a note. "Julian doesn't listen. Staff burned out. Guests noticing." He wasn't sure what the next move would be, but he knew this much: something had to give. Rowan showed up for his fourth day at Belhurst Grand with dirt under his nails. He'd spent the early morning hauling crates from a late shipment that had been left outside overnight. No one had been available to bring it in before close. The cardboard was damp, some packaging ruined. Supplies were short to begin with, and now they were tossing out half a case of toiletries. He logged it quietly, noting where the breakdown had happened. No night shift porter. No backup inventory protocol, no one to flag it up the chain. At 8:10, he was sent to the guest pool area to assist with setup. Towels needed folding, umbrellas raised, and the bar wiped down. The pool attendant, a wiry kid named Malik, had been working solo for 3 weeks. Rowan recognized the signs. Fast, precise movements and eyes that darted constantly, tracking everything. As they worked, Malik gestured toward the far end of the deck. "That cabana's booked for some VIP from corporate later today. Julian wants it spotless." Said no excuses, whatever that means. Rowan kept folding, his fingers stiff from cold water. "How often do we get corporate visits?" Malik glanced at him. "Almost never. Last one was over a year ago, just district managers doing walkthroughs." You'd think they'd notice the busted heater in the men's showers. Rowan didn't answer. The heater had been on his list since day one. An hour later, he caught sight of Macy again. She was walking through the courtyard, talking on her cell phone, tucked neatly into a high-waisted skirt and blazer. Her pace was clipped, voice sharp as she passed by, not acknowledging anyone. Moments later, he found a half-full coffee cup discarded on a bench near the garden path. He picked it up and dropped it into the bin. In the staff kitchen during lunch, he sat near a woman he hadn't spoken to before. Her badge read Alyssa Events. She was nursing a container of rice and beans and scrolling quietly through her phone. Rowan waited until she set it down. "You work in events?" She looked up, surprised. "Yeah, trying to anyway. I mostly do setup now." "Half the team left in March." "Why?" She shrugged. "Pay never went up, expectations did. We used to get bonuses for weddings over 50 guests, now it's just do your job." He leaned forward. "You ever bring that up with management?" Alyssa gave a short laugh. "Julian, you serious?" "He tells us to be grateful we're still here," said corporates tightening everything until the fourth quarter. Rowan took that in. "And HR? They send surveys, no one trusts them." He didn't press further. She'd already said more than she probably realized. That afternoon, a maintenance request came through for a jammed door in the east wing. Rowan volunteered to assist the technician, a quiet man in his 60s named Clarence. He walked with a slight hitch and carried a canvas tool bag that looked older than most staff members. As they worked to realign the door's hinges, Clarence wiped sweat from his brow with a handkerchief. "Too many of these doors were installed wrong from the beginning," he muttered. "Why not replace the worst ones?" we asked. "Got told it's not in scope this year." He tightened a screw. "Used to be 5 of us. Now it's 2. My partner's out with a back injury." "You thinking of retiring?" Clarence chuckled. "I was. Then my daughter lost her job last winter. Now I'm just glad I can still climb stairs." Rowan helped him repack the bag and carried it back to the maintenance office, a narrow room behind the boiler. Inside, he noticed a whiteboard with a list of pending repairs, over 30 items, most dated back months. He took a photo of it when Clarence wasn't looking. That evening, Rowan went back to the motel. He opened his laptop, connected to the private network his executive assistant had set up, and started pulling internal reports. He didn't trust the ones Julian sent anymore, but the property management software kept logs. Maintenance backlogs, staffing logs, guest complaints, they were all there. He cross-referenced the data with what he'd seen firsthand. The numbers aligned with the stories. A 40% increase in guest complaints over the last 2 quarters. Average response time for maintenance tickets had doubled. Staff turnover was up 22%. The payroll budget had been cut. The biggest red flag came when he looked at discretionary spending. Travel expenses for executive management had increased. Hotel-sponsored team dinners, charged under marketing, were happening almost weekly, but only for department heads. He went to bed with a tightness in his jaw. The next morning, Rowan entered through the staff door just as a new employee was signing in. She looked barely out of college, clutching a folder with her onboarding paperwork. Her face was drawn, nervous. The woman at reception, an HR rep named Celine, didn't look up from her screen. Orientation videos on the tablet. Sign and return the waiver when it's done. No welcome. No introduction. No one offered to show her around. Rowan watched her sit on a bench in the hallway, alone, tapping nervously on the screen. Later that day, Macy was giving a tour to a pair of potential clients. They were dressed casually, but she was in sales mode, gesturing broadly, spinning phrases like exclusive access and bespoke experience. Rowan stood nearby, wiping down handrails, but she didn't acknowledge him. As the group passed, one of the clients asked about staff-to-guest ratios. "We pride ourselves on efficiency," she replied. "Our team is lean but highly trained." Rowan bit back a response. By mid-afternoon, a guest walking through the lobby slipped on a wet spot near the entrance. She caught herself before she fell, but her shopping bag hit the floor and burst open. Rowan rushed over to help gather the items while another guest called for assistance. No one from the front desk moved. Macy was feet away and didn't turn around. After the guest was helped to a seat, Rowan approached Julian's office. He knocked once and stepped in. Julian looked up from his tablet. "Yes." There was a slip in the lobby. No one on the desk reacted. "We've got water tracking in from the planters near the door." "It needs signage," Julian blinked. "Noted, I'll tell facilities." Rowan didn't leave. "With respect, that's not enough. This could have been a lawsuit." Julian's expression changed. "You're very forward for a new hire." "Only because I've seen this twice now and I'm wondering if anyone's actually accountable." Julian stood, not abruptly but with posture suddenly stiff. "I don't know who you think you are, but I don't take direction from bellhops." Rowan didn't raise his voice. "That's good, because I'm not one." Julian's brow creased. "Excuse me?" Rowan reached into his back pocket and pulled out his ID, the real one. He placed it on the desk and let Julian read the name. Julian's hands dropped to his sides. "The night I arrived, I wore jeans and asked for a room. I was turned away, lied to, told you were fully booked." Julian opened his mouth, then closed it. "I've spent 4 days working alongside employees who are doing miracles with half the resources they need," Rowan continued, voice steady. "I've seen broken infrastructure, dishonest reporting, ignored safety issues, and morale dragging on the floor." Julian looked pale. "If I could explain, I already know the explanations," Rowan said. "I've seen the numbers. I've seen the people behind them." A silence hung between them. Then Rowan leaned forward, effective immediately. "You're relieved of your duties. You'll be escorted out after your personal items are collected. HR will follow up." Julian's face twitched, but he didn't speak. Rowan walked out, leaving the door ajar. He made his way to the staff lounge where Diego was refilling a water jug. Rowan called his name. Diego turned, confused. "Everything okay?" Rowan extended his hand. "My name is Rowan Daniels. I own this hotel." The room fell quiet. Diego stood still for a beat, then slowly shook the hand. "I had no idea." "I know. I'm glad you treated me the same anyway." Diego gave a small nod. "You're not here to fire more people, are you?" "No," Rowan said. "I'm here to fix what's broken, and I need help from people who actually care." He turned to the rest of the staff in the lounge. "Tomorrow, we'll meet in the ballroom. Everyone, I'll explain everything then, but for now, thank you for showing me the truth." No applause followed, just a quiet, stunned silence. But for the first time, no one looked away. At exactly 8 the next morning, the doors to the Bellhurst Grand Ballroom opened. The room had been cleared of its usual event setup. No floral arrangements. No round tables with pristine linens. Just rows of chairs facing a small platform where a single mic stood. Some employees arrived cautiously, scanning for signs of another mandatory training. Others came in pairs or quietly took seats at the back, unsure of what to expect. Word had spread fast about the reveal, about Julian, about the owner showing up in uniform. Rowan stood to the side, wearing the same staff shirt he'd worn all week, sleeves rolled neatly to the elbow. No podium, no cue cards, just a clipboard with notes he barely glanced at. Once the room settled, he stepped forward. "I'll be brief," he began, voice calm but firm. "You don't know me, not really, that's my fault. I let this place run without ever walking its halls. I trusted reports, numbers, and titles. That stopped 4 nights ago." He looked around the room. No one interrupted, no one shifted in their seat, they were listening. "I came here pretending to be someone else. Not out of ego, out of necessity. I needed to see what this actually feels like day to day, hour to hour. What I found was a team doing the work of 3, fixing problems they didn't cause, holding this place up with grit and silence." He paused, letting the words settle. "I also found something else. Leadership that stopped leading, people in charge who forgot who they work for. That ends today." Alyssa from events sat near the second row, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. She spoke without raising her hand. "What happens now? You gave a speech, great, but we're still short on every shift." Rowan nodded once. "Fair question, here's what's already underway. First, Julian is no longer with the company. Effective immediately, Diego will serve as interim operations lead until we find someone permanent. That person will be chosen from within. No outside hires until we've rebuilt trust." He turned his gaze toward Diego, who looked stunned. A few heads turned toward him. "I didn't sign up for that," Diego said, voice low but audible. "I know," Rowan replied. "That's why you're exactly who should start." No applause followed, but something shifted. A beat of consideration, respect that didn't have to be said aloud. Rowan continued. "Second, starting next week, every department will receive temporary staffing support from our partner properties. I've already pulled 6 staff from our downtown location who have volunteered to rotate here for a month. That buys us time to hire properly." Clarence, standing at the back with his tool bag by his feet, raised his hand halfway. "Hiring's fine, but tools still break, doors still jam." Rowan nodded. "Facilities gets emergency funding starting today. You'll have what you need. And you won't be logging repairs on a whiteboard anymore. You'll have tablets that connect directly to the asset system." He turned a page on the clipboard. "Third, our pay structure's out of step with the market. That's on me. We're adjusting base wages to reflect regional cost of living benchmarks, not promises actual raises. HR will meet with each department individually to walk through the numbers." A murmur ran through the room. It wasn't disbelief, it was caution. The kind that comes from hearing too many empty announcements. Rowan didn't try to sell it. He just kept going. "Fourth, every quarter I'll spend 1 week at one of our properties, in uniform. No press, no emails, no advance warning. I want to see what you see. That's not a PR stunt. That's policy. I can't fix what I don't understand." Macy stood near the far wall, arms folded. Her expression was unreadable. She'd been allowed to stay for now, pending a formal review of guest service conduct. She hadn't spoken since walking in. Rowan didn't look at her directly, but his next words didn't need to. "Let me be clear. No one here will be judged by how well they pretend. We're not rewarding polish anymore. We're rewarding integrity. That means if you see something broken physically, culturally, structurally, you speak. You bring it up, and if someone above you dismisses it, they answer to me." He stepped down from the platform and walked to the center aisle. No more silence. No more burnout being passed off as resilience. "I can't undo what's happened. But I can promise it won't continue." He stopped in front of the rows and looked out at them, not as a CEO, not as an owner, just as a man finally seeing his company. "Some of you have been carrying this place longer than I've been paying attention. That changes now." He gave a slight nod and stepped aside. There was no clapping, no grand send-off, just the quiet weight of something real settling into place. After the meeting, Rowan didn't leave. He helped break down the chairs with the event staff, rolled equipment back into storage, and joined Mona for coffee in the break room. She didn't say much, just poured him a cup and passed the sugar without asking. That was enough. Over the next 2 days, changes began, not flashy but felt. The front desk team met with HR and received their revised pay statements. Alyssa got a new assistant for the events team, flown in from a sister property who'd volunteered to cover the shortfall. Clarence received a new tool cart and keys to a proper maintenance hub that had been sealed off during budget cuts. He didn't say much, just opened it and got to work. On the 3rd morning, a new housekeeper named Larissa arrived. This time, someone met her at the door, gave her a tour. Introduced her by name. When she walked into the staff kitchen for her first break, she found a welcome card on the table, signed by the team. Not everything was fixed. The guest elevators still made that low, grinding noise on floor 7. Several rooms were still waiting on new fixtures. And no one walked slower, no one worked less, but something had shifted. Staff started making eye contact again. On Rowan's last night in uniform, he found himself in the lobby near closing. The floors had just been polished. A guest wheeled in a suitcase, exhausted, shoulders slumped. Rowan stepped forward, still wearing his name tag. "Welcome to Belhurst Grand," he said. "Can I help you get checked in?" The guest looked up, surprised. "Yeah, just need a room for the night. Long drive." Rowan smiled, gentle but certain. "We've got space."